I really love this quote from Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy said, success is goals, all else is commentary, right? And that's just a great quote, because without goals, you're just wandering aimlessly, right? You can't expect to grow your practice or get any real return out of your marketing program. You gotta have goals in place. Clear goals really is what puts the wind in your sails, right? Because now you're motivated. Now you know what your target is, where you're aiming, what your return is. And then when you see that return come in, now you feel good about that plan. And all of a sudden, a change happens, right? Marketing, instead of becoming this money pit, starts to become an investment, right? It's you're buying into something knowing that, hey, last month, I spent $1,000 and I earned 4,000. Wow, that's pretty cool. So really, it just makes life better too, because we're not irritated about a marketing program. Now, when we talk about goals, I thought this Harvard study was really interesting. Maybe you've heard this before. This was a 1979 interview of graduates, and it was interesting to break down and how those that had goals or didn't have goals, what their end result was, right? So 84% had no specific goals. 13% had goals, but they did not write them down, right? So they kind of had something in mind, but never actually wrote them down, didn't pursue them. 3% had clear written goals and plans to accomplish them. Now you're probably wondering, so what's the result of that? Well, here's the result. The 13% of that class, right? Those that had the goals but not written down, they were earning on average twice as much as those that didn't have goals, right? So they doubled their revenue by simply having goals. But then even more staggering, right, is that the top 3% that wrote down their goals and they had a strategy and a plan, they were earning on average 10 times as much as all that other 97% put together. So my question to you is, where do you fit in? Are you in the 84%, not really interested in having goals, just not really interested in pursuing becoming a leading practice in your market? Or are you one that's going to write them down, become the top 3%, and see that revenue and goals reach and the revenue climb? Well, that's really up to you, but we're obviously, this program is designed for those who are interested in pursuing goals. And we're going to talk about how you can lay out that plan. Now, in order to set goals, you have to have a goal setting framework, right? Because otherwise you're like, I don't know where to start. Where do I start with goals? What kind of goals do I set? So first, you need to have a written goal and plan, right? So you got to write them down. And in our workbook, there's a page there, pages 4 to 6. You can use that for writing down some of the goals that you have for your practice. We recommend writing down 3 different goals. So one, you have to have a long range goal, right? 1 year from now, where do you want your practice to be? Maybe it's a revenue threshold. Maybe it's something to do with freeing up time, spending more time with your family. Maybe it's spending more time on the golf course. Whatever that is, write down those goals. And then we're going to break that down into quarterly goals that will help you reach that 1 year goal, and then monthly goals that will help you reach the quarterly. And by doing that and checking month over month, you're going to see that you have a starting and stopping point, and you're going to be building. And as your program progresses, well, you're going to start to correct that course and you're going to reach those goals. So once you have the framework in place, it's time to set the goals, right? So what are your goals? Take a moment and write them down. What's your revenue target for 2021? What kind of growth would you like to see? Maybe you're at $500,000 a year and you'd like to go to 750. Or maybe you're at 650,000, you'd like to go to 900,000. Or maybe you're at 1.2 and you'd like to get to 1.5. Whatever it is for you, write that down based on your revenue that your practice earns and where you'd like to grow based on a reasonable percentage. And then we'll break that down into a monthly goal, right? So what kind of monthly revenue do I need in order to earn that? And then how many new patients does that mean that I need to get? Right? Because revenue comes from not only our existing patients, but our new patients. So we need to look at that. Where's that revenue coming from? And how many new patients do I need to get to reach that next level? Lastly, what is your average patient annual value? In other words, on average, if you take an average over the course of a 12-month period, you have so many patients that visited that practice and so much revenue that you earn that practice. Well, what's the average over each patient? In other words, how many visits does each patient make, and how much do they spend with your practice? Maybe it's $700, $800, $100 in a year, for example, the average. So some might spend 2,000, 5,000 even. Others might only spend 50 or 100, and then they don't come back. But what's the average? That's what we use as our benchmark for determining those revenue goals. So let's look at a quick example, and I'm going to invite you to go ahead and write down your goals. What is your target revenue growth? Maybe you're trying to get 250,000 increase, right? You're trying to go from 600 to 850 as an example, right? $600,000 a year to 850. So what is that a month? Well, that's $20,000, 833 or $20,833 a month. That's the increase you need to see coming in on average for your practice. Well, what's your patient annual value? Well, again, if you take that total revenue, divide it by the number of patients you saw, you're going to come up with a number. And I just kind of picked a nice medium average. Let's assume that each patient on average over the course of 12 months will spend about $950 with our practice. Well, what does that mean? Well, that breaks down real nice and easy, doesn't it? Because now I can take the total monthly target and divide it by 950. That's the value that each new patient's going to bring to the practice. And I come up with 22 new patients. So 22 new patients every month, that's what I need to eventually reach my goal by the end of the year. Now, as you know, not every patient visits that practice, right? All those times in the first month, right? Spread over the course of the year, but at least you know what your average is based on real numbers for your practice. So just take a minute, go ahead and write that down. I'm going to go back to our previous slide here. Write down what your numbers are. What's your growth? What's your target growth? How much is that monthly? How much is that annually? And then how many new patients does that come out to be? I'm going to give you just a minute to go ahead and write those down. If you don't have the numbers, maybe you have a rough guess, or just go through the exercise, and you can always do this later as well. But at least you'll have some good numbers to work with. And once you know that number of new patients, well, it gets a lot easier going forward to know whether your marketing program is successful or not. So, all right. So hopefully you've had a chance to do that now, and you've written in those numbers. At least you have a close guess. And let's move on now to break it down to the next step, right? In order to get new patients, what do you need? Well, you need leads, right? A lead becomes a patient. You got to have someone who's interested that you can convert to a patient. So the question is, how many patients will you, or how many leads will you need? We know for our practice, in our example, we need 22 new patients, but how many leads do I need in order to close those 22 patients? Well, that depends on your average conversion rate, right? So what is your conversion rate? That means if I get 100 leads that come in through my website, through Facebook, or call my practice, or send me an email, or submit a web form, how many of them out of 100 will actually turn into real patients? Now, if you have that statistical tracking that you've been doing over time, well, it's easy to see. If not, you might have to take an estimate, because you're going to divide that number, the total, by the conversion rate, right? So let's look at an example. So let's say my average conversion rate is 60%, right? So if I get 100 new leads in from my website, I get 100 phone calls, or let's say they're a mix. I get phone calls, I get emails, I get a chat message on Facebook, on my website. But all in all, I get 100 leads that come in. I can convert about 60 of them on average. The other 40, they just don't seem to turn around for us. Well, then what's my conversion rate? Well, 60%. So now when I know I need 22 new patients, I can do an inversion calculation, right? 22 new patients divided by that 60%, or 0.6, will tell me exactly how many leads I need to get, right? 37 leads per month. So for me, in our example calculation, if I get 37 leads a month, I know I can convert them, 60% of them, into patients. And that will guarantee me that I'm going to get 22 patients for my practice. Now, if I get those 22 patients, I've already done the math. I know I'm going to be increasing my revenue by $250,000 this year. So hopefully that helps you see how you can really get a good firm handle on how you can grow your practice from leads to patients and so on. Now, let's talk about the worksheet a little bit. If you have not clicked on or opened the worksheet, the link should be in your workbook. If not, I put the website right there at the top, right? It's go.theleadingpractice.com/2021-worksheet. And that worksheet is all lowercase. And if you pull that up, you're going to get a beautiful Google Sheet that will show you exactly how you can calculate what we just did. And in fact, it will do all the math for you, right? So make sure you take advantage of that. So let's talk about goals. What's your goal for 2021? Did you set it yet? Do you feel like you got a good handle on what those goals are? Did you set a revenue number? Do you have a new lead calculation and a new patient calculation yet? Do you know how many leads you're going to need to get there? Well, hopefully you do. If not, by all means, go through the steps and you'll have a nice, clear picture of what your target is and how to get there.